Hey guys, it's Miss Bauer again, and welcome to your Unit 1, Part 2 of your notes. In this section, we're going to talk about the research methods, which is a super important topic. It's one that we're going to focus on all year and come back to. Again, these are some of the basic things. You guys have heard or seen a lot of these, or even have done experiments using some of these. But let's get started. You guys have heard of the scientific method. I'm sure in middle school you used it, in high school you've used it, and now in psychology you're going to use it. So in psychology and the scientific method, we don't really care about what you study, but what we do care about is how you study it. So any person can use a scientific method and you can apply it to any type of research. You observe some phenomenon, you formulate some hypotheses, you make predictions, you test it, you draw conclusions, and if you can complete this experiment over and over again and replicate it, it then becomes a theory. Operational definition. This term is very important, especially when we get into our FRQs more. An operational definition is a statement of the procedures used to define research variables. You're defining the operation that's going on. So for example, you have good grades. If I ask everybody, hey, what's your goal for this year? And you write on your piece of paper, I want to get good grades. Great. But so what? To you, a good grade could be a C. But to the person next to you, a good grade might be an A or a B. So we have to make sure when you are in your psychology class and doing experiments, you are actually being very clear on what exactly you are looking at. Making sure you define exactly what you mean. The next research method we're going to look at is the survey method. And this is where you self-report your behaviors, your thoughts, your feelings to someone. And usually these surveys go towards a particular group of people, usually a couple questions, 5 to 10 questions because they don't want them too long. It's a random sample of that specific group of people that they want. However, these are the most common used method, but the least effective. Because think about it. If you have a phone call and they're like, hey, Joe, at the end, do you want to take this 2-minute survey to help me? And you're like, oh yeah, great. But do you really take the survey? Not all of the time. Maybe a couple times. Our next method is the naturalistic observation method. And this is one of the most entertaining methods, which you guys probably do all the time. It's very similar to people watching. Take a pack of gum, a brand new pack of gum, and stick it on a table in the cafeteria, and just watch what happens. It's also really entertaining with a box of donuts, but those can be a little pricier. So naturalistic observation is just when you observe and record behaviors that are happening naturally. You don't control anything, you don't manipulate anything. You're just watching and writing down what you see. Like, 3 people stared at the pack of gum. 1 person went to see if it was opened. Another person asked so-and-so if it was theirs. In your notes by this one, though, I want you guys to either draw donuts or gum by this definition that you write down. So take a moment and do that. Descriptive research. You're describing some sort of phenomenon, whether you were observing something, whether it was a survey or interview or a case study, which we'll get into. However, you need to know that descriptive research does not answer questions about how or why things are the way they are. They're just describing what's going on. So then we have longitudinal versus cross-sectional research. And I want you guys to really be aware of these two terms. So first we have longitudinal, which we see long, happens over several points in time, a long time. It's that same group of people or same sample, and it changes over an individual level. So for example, we're going to look at one group of people studied over a long period of time. Easy. Cross-sectional. It's at one point in time, a different sample or a different group of people, and over one given point of time. So for example, a group of participants of different ages studied at one time. So if we want to look at the research that talks about Common Core and we want to do a longitudinal study, we're going to follow you guys when you were in kindergarten until you graduate. And at 3rd grade, 12th grade, 8th grade, and 4th grade, we collect some data. Same group of people, long time. However, if we want that research real quick and see just in 1 year, in 2014, how was Common Core, we're going to be like, all right, let's look at 5 kindergartners, 5 4th graders, 5 8th graders, and 5 12th graders at the same time. Real quick, easy peasy. Correlational research. The goal of correlational research is to see if there is a relationship between something. However, it does not always mean that there can be a relationship. So we have a couple different things. Correlation coefficient is always labeled R, and it can be from -1 to +1. The strength of the relationship is called magnitude, and the direction is either positive or negative. And I'm going to show you some examples on the next slide. So if you guys look, the closer you are to 0 shows no relationship. The closer you are to 1, it's a perfect relationship. The two factors always occur together. And that could be either positive or a negative correlation. So if we look at some diagrams right here, we have a perfect positive going up, perfect negative, low degrees of positive and negative, high degrees of positive and negative, no correlation, and no correlation. Again, here's another example of some scatter plots that show different correlations. The length of a lecture and the number of lawns. It's a positive correlation. The longer you're sitting in a chair listening to something, the more likely you're going to get tired. Length of a lecture and attentiveness. The longer you sit there and listen, the more you're going to daydream or nod off. Hours of studying and test grade. You guys should know the more you study, the more you practice something, the better you'll do. The number of parties versus test grade. If you go to 20 parties and you don't study, you're probably not going to do so well. Correlational research, again, goes in positive or negative directions. With positive correlations, they go in the same direction, and in negative correlations, they go in opposite directions. On your next slide, you are going to draw something super, super important. And I mean, if it's not in size like 72 font, I might judge you a little bit. But you need to write down somewhere and then highlight it that correlation does not equal causation. And in class, I will show you some examples of what I mean. But you need to write this down. It is so super important, and then highlight it. This is our last slide for tonight. I hope you guys enjoy your evening. I'm glad you're doing your homework. And again, make sure that you have had this highlighted, because I'm going to check it tomorrow. Goodbye.